guys, welcome back to another episode of ASMR Money Mentor. We will be getting started here in just one moment. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Maybe grab a beverage of your choice. I hope you had a great week. Or actually, I should say, I hope you had a great day. Because we're in the beginning of a week. And actually, today starts the beginning of a new topic. So just relax. Sometimes I feel like I'm starting a live stream, which I have not done yet on my channel, but I may do that someday. In fact, somebody said that they had a lot of questions for me, so I was thinking a live stream might be a really good opportunity for you guys to ask questions. If you have any questions on anything we've covered over these last multiple months. So let me think about that. I may do a live stream, especially if we get to like 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I don't know, is that a little too aggressive? We'll see. And then maybe we'll get to 10,000 and then 20,000. You know, oftentimes I wonder how quickly or how much I want to grow the channel to reach as many people as I can. But I do think I'm off to a pretty good start. I don't know. I'm content with it. We'll see what happens over time. But this week, what I would like to talk about is this book. Which, as you know, I have mentioned several times. The Algebra of Wealth, a simple formula for financial security by Scott Galloway. I've mentioned it a couple times. So this week we'll be talking about my reaction to the book. And of course, I'm not going to go over every single detail. We would be here all day. But I did read it, and I did take some notes about things that I think are important that I wanted to share with you. So again, we'll be talking about those this week in a 3-part series. 1, 2, 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now, the first thing I want to mention about Scott Galloway is that he is a very smart person in the area of economics. He's a professor at NYU. So he knows a thing or two about economics. And if you Google him or watch him on YouTube, you will see that he looks a little bit like me. Which I think is very interesting, although he is so much smarter when it comes to money. Obviously, he is where he is, and he is who he is. But I just want to say that for mainstream America, or whatever country you are watching me from, I always say it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do well with money and build wealth. And so I want you guys to understand that I'm just a normal person out there. I don't consider myself really smart. Maybe a little bit smart. I just know that I chose the right path and I made the right decisions. I fostered the correct skills. I nurtured the right relationships, and I formed the correct habits to make things happen over time for me with money, and you guys can do the same. I know many of you may just be starting your financial journey, and some of you may have started multiple years ago, and some of you are maybe, where I am, where you're thinking about the potential for perhaps going into early retirement. So we all come with our own skill sets. We all come with our own knowledge when it comes to personal finance, but I think that all of us can do really well. So for the book, it does have 4 chapters. So I took a few notes, and I just want to go through things again that resonated with me as I was reading the book. So in addition to what I just mentioned about skills, relationships, and habits, because that's how he opens up chapter 1, he talks about fostering the correct relationships in your life to give yourself the right opportunity for positioning, which I talk a lot about, to make sure that then people will give you opportunities to have earned income, which you can then take that earned income and turn it into either passive income or portfolio income in terms of your 401k and other investment vehicles that you may have. So having the skills and the relationships and the habits is very important to start. I also like that he talked about that we all want to build security, and that we should really stay away from trying to just make a lot of money. And I talk about that as well, that at one point early on in my career, I did think that earning income was above everything, because I really didn't understand how money worked at that point. You've got your earned income, and like I said, we have to turn that into something else other than just earned income, because he talks about the fact that nobody really gets wealthy or rich from earned income. He says very few people, maybe athletes that earn, millions of dollars, and movie stars and singers, etc. Of course, they make millions of dollars per year. But most of us have lower income that we then have to turn into either, as I mentioned, portfolio income or passive income. Now, I'm of the mindset of portfolio income. That means your mutual funds that you invest in, your 401k, your Roth, your taxable account, your health savings account, my Fabulous 4 that I talk about all the time. I chose that route, and he even said, actually another person said this, I can't remember who, but Bill Gates is also somebody that earned money through portfolio investing. So however you choose to do that, because I know many of you may come to the table with different aspirations than what I have. I chose one route. You may choose another route. You may be really good with real estate. You may be really good with business. And that's great. You just have to make sure that you understand exactly how that works to get to where you want to be. The end result will be the end result, no matter how you get there. But you have to be skilled, as Scott Galloway talks about, in knowing how and the tactics and behaviors in which to get there. So we all want, again, economic security. We do not want the opposite, which is economic anxiety. Right? I mean, I know many of you, myself included, when I was younger, I was very anxious about money, about what I was going to be doing in the future. And so that came with, of course, anxiety, which we want to transition from anxiety over into security. And so in his book, he shows us how to do that. He also says that people should stop worrying about trying to get more. So again, the more money, the more income, etc. He talks about assets. Of course, we know what assets are, right? I've talked about it before. We've got our assets, we've got liabilities, and the difference of those is our net worth. Well, Scott mentions that, of course, our assets, whether it be again through passive income or portfolio income, transitions and turns into what he calls a burn rate. A burn rate is how quickly you would spend the money. Does that make sense? So again, we're thinking about in the future once we build our engine, right? For many of you, like myself, for many years I was in the accumulation phase. I wasn't really thinking about too much in the future about how to pull down money from my portfolio, which I'm still trying to figure that out. But you're focused on the accumulation phase, but you should have on your radar things like what we're talking about, because it gives you the why of why you are investing and saving, right? It gives you the motivation. And so a burn rate then is how much money that you take off of whatever engine you have created. And he talks about in the book that if you take your burn rate times 25, that's how much money you would need potentially to stop working. Okay? Now, that is the same as if we did the 4% rule. Remember how I talked about the 4% rule before? Let's say we have $1 million when we retire. How much can we take from that? 4% usually. It's a good starting point or a baseline, which is $40,000. But if you take 40,000 times 25, you get to $1 million as well, right? So it's the same thing. You can multiply what you need, not just your true expenses, but you got to add it all up. You even have to think about, everything potentially, and there has to be enough gap there and buffers in which to build that base. And then you take that base, you multiply by 25, and then you get to what you would need potentially, of course, to quit your job. And for me, it was always, I knew because I started so late, I could never get to anything over than $1 million or 1.5. If I work until I'm 67, I'm 58 now, I can probably get to 2 million. But you know what? I don't want to sacrifice all those years. So we have to live in the reality of where we can get to. So back to the book though. It's interesting that Scott talks about a term called Stoicism. Stoicism is logical thought to guide behaviors. It's also reflective in nature, and these are concepts that were born many centuries ago. And he also adds in building a strong character is also important. These are basic principles to live by that then create opportunity for positioning ourselves to have influence in the form of a positive result. Now that's a mouthful. So let me just anchor this back to my own life. And Scott does a good job in his in his book, in giving his examples as well. And his examples are way up here. I mean, like I said in the beginning of this episode, if I didn't say it, I'll say it now. he's created multiple businesses throughout his career. I'm just a little guy that, was, saving from zero and just putting my money into my 401k, right? The simplest path I think that there is to wealth is what I did. I didn't want to make it larger than it was. I kept things super simple. Remember my motto, keep it simple, savor. That's what I truly believe in. But in reflecting on what he talked about here in terms of Stoicism, it is very true, and I think I've shared this before, that in 2002, when I was with the company that I'm with now, I started asking people and planting little seeds in the minds of people that could then offer me positions in a direction that I wanted to go. You have to be very calculated in your attempt to do well with the company of your choice, because the company that you work for truly is your choice. You don't have to be there. You can go somewhere else. So, I chose to plant those seeds, which later then, those people did hire me in different departments. So, he talks a lot about having that thought process to influence your destiny. He also talked about all the mistakes he made, just like I made mistakes. And again, his was on a much, much larger scale than mine ever was. So I'm going to be wrapping up this episode here in just a moment. This is chapter 1 and 2. We'll be coming back in a couple days and talk about chapter 3. But I want to end today's episode by being a little bit reflective of what he talked about in terms of, have you ever heard of the term hedonic treadmill? I think I said that right. Hedonic treadmill is a concept that was created in the 1970s. And it means that changes in our life have little impact once we adjust to what our new reality is. And so, to anchor back to what we talked about in the beginning of this episode and what Scott Galloway said about the pursuit of money in and of itself is a goal that is never satisfied. Does that make sense? Because if you continue to let money be your goal, potentially you may never be happy because you're always chasing more and more money. It's the treadmill that you cannot get off of because it just keeps going and going and going. And I remember hearing about it even before Scott talked about it, that I finally at one point in my financial journey said to myself, you really have to find other goals than the pursuit of money. There were times in my career that I wanted to leave the job I was in and find more and more money, income, earned income, ordinary income that I was getting from a company. I felt like I had to get more and more and more. But then I realized it had more to do with not what you earn, but what you keep. And that wealth is relative based on your expenses. And Scott talks about that in these first 2 chapters. He says that the first lesson, he says, is not a function of what you earn, but what you keep. And so that is what I would like to leave you with today. We're going to pick up and move on in the next episode and talk about a couple more chapters in the book, The Algebra of Wealth, a simple formula for financial security by Scott Galloway. So if you like content like this, please give me a like. I would appreciate it. Consider subscribing to my channel as well. I appreciate that all of you guys guys are here, and I'll see you next time.